Welcome, guys. Welcome to Brighten Up Sunshine. I want to invite you guys to subscribe if you've not already subbed. And again, I want to welcome you to the channel. Every day, here's a new beginning. Today, we're going to dive deep into a topic that is becoming more common and concerning. Many people are reporting sudden bank account closures. It's something you might not expect until it happens to you. And trust me, if it does, it's shocking and frustrating. So let's get into why banks are actually closing accounts without warning people, what it means for you and anyone who has a bank account, and most importantly, what we could do to actually protect ourselves. Now, before I begin this and we actually dive into this live topic, I just want to let you guys know that you can feel free to chat amongst yourselves there. And I'd love to hear from you and what you have to say. Have any of you actually experienced or even heard about sudden bank account closures? If so, then drop the comment in the chat so that we can see. And in the comment section, if you're not watching this on the live, but you're watching a replay of it, just the more information we have and the more that we share with each other, then the more we'll know. And so we can be prepared the best that we can. So I just want to say there was a real life example, and I will be posting the link in the description. If it's not already there, we will be working on it. And it's to I believe it was a New York Times discussion. And it was talking about this guy named Dillian who was just trying to enjoy a holiday light show, the article said, when suddenly his card was declined. So this was in 2023, but there are many different articles and reports in 2024. Like if you just Google banks closing accounts. But let's get back to this guy, Dylan. In the article, obviously it talks about him being in shock. He had no money in his account. And when he called the bank, they told him his account was closed, and that was it. So even though we're FDIC insured, when they close our bank accounts, that's a whole different ballgame when they freeze them. So we need to understand this because this is a part I didn't know. I had no idea. And then what got me started on this is I was actually watching another YouTube video, and that lady's talking, and she actually had her bank account frozen, and it took her weeks to get money out of it. And she actually had to go to LinkedIn to try to contact somebody on there and get her money back. But I mean, thank God she had money to be able in another way to pay her bills. But imagine if they lock your bank accounts and you can't even pay your bills. So if this sounds familiar to any of you, maybe you've been in a situation where you had trouble assessing your account unexpectedly, I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you've had this happen to you or you know someone who did, share this story. Please share it in the comments. It's scary, right? You trust that your money's safe, and then one day you could just be locked out without any warning. Now, I remember in 2008, one of the local banks in our area was closed, and I personally knew the woman who had um, money in that account, and I was like, "Did they freeze your account?" But that local bank just got bought out by another bank, and they just rolled her money right over. I think she was like maybe 48 hours without the money access, but it wasn't long. But is banks increasingly doing this? Due to various reasons, from what I was reading, they are. And here are some of the reasons that banks close accounts that I thought was interesting. So, one of the big reasons is fraud prevention, they say. Banks are on high alert for any suspicious activity, and they have to comply with regulations like the Bank Secrecy Act. and file what's called a suspicious activity report, which the rest of this video, I'll probably just call that the SAR report. And what that basically means is when something seems off, they have to file a SAR report. And here's the kicker, sometimes it's just an innocent transaction that triggers it. It could be a large purchase, like maybe you sent money to a family member you don't normally do, or a cash app, or even just an unusual pattern of spending around holidays and stuff like that that the system flags. And let's take a moment and think about that. Something as simple as transferring money could cause your account to be flagged. What do you guys think about that? Does it seem fair? Let me know in the comments. That's right. Many times people don't even realize what has triggered the account closure. According to the article, again, I'm going to post the description or the link to that so you can read it for yourself. They never gave an explanation why they closed the account. There are cases where even routine, legitimate transactions got flagged by mistake. I want to break down again a few common reasons why banks close accounts. Okay, common reasons. Number one, suspicious activity. So, any transaction that appears out of ordinary. Two, compliance with laws. Banks must comply with laws designed to prevent money laundering and terrorist financing. Three, fraud prevention. This could be from external frauders or internal account mismanagement. Another reason, overdrawn or negative balances. This was interesting. Some banks close accounts if there's a constant negative balance. Well, I mean, if there's a constant negative balance, you would want them to probably freeze your account so that you don't have to keep paying overdraft fees. But when you got money in there and they lock it up and that money was for you to pay your bills, well, that's a whole nother can of worms. Another reason, inactive accounts. Believe it or not, if your account has been inactive for a while, the bank might close it. That's interesting. So if you have a couple $1,000s just sitting in there and it's inactive, do they just close it? That's very disturbing. So again, I was just Googling this and searching right here on YouTube, and I just found more stories about it. Many stories over the years. And they all have the one thing in common, the person involved never saw it happening. As I mentioned earlier, the guy from the article, um, there's another story there. Todd was his name, and he had been with his bank for over a decade. And one day he tried to make that simple large transfer between his own accounts, and bam, his account was flagged. And it was closed without explanation. No fraud, no bad activity, just a normal transfer, so he thought. How many of you have made a large purchase or a big transfer? Imagine if that was all it took to shut down accounts. Has anyone ever faced something like this, guys? It's crazy. The type of closures that I was reading are happening to more people than, again, we could even think. All right. So let's say it happens. Then what? What can be done? Well, if an account gets closed, what should first be done is don't panic. I mean, it's stressful, so we have to keep our head about us, but there are steps we could actually take to regain control. And I thought it was helpful to kind of go over those steps that you could take right away if an account gets closed. Number one, contact the bank immediately. Although I was listening to some people as we get into this, I was listening to them. They got nowhere. They just said, yeah, your bank account's closed. They didn't really help them get it back, but you should still contact them. And when you do all this, again, you should document who you talked to, the time that you talked, and record the conversation if your state allows you to legally do that. Call customer service to understand the reason for your closure. Even if they don't give you a detailed explanation, get the specifics as you possibly can. 2, request something that's written, an explanation. This might not always work, but is worth trying. A written statement could help you appeal the decision or understand what's happening. 3, so there is a Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB, and if you believe your account was wrongfully closed, you could file a complaint with them and they can investigate and potentially help resolve the issue. So you could find out more about them just by Googling CFPB. 4, share your funds. Or share your funds. That's funny. Secure your funds. Make sure you understand how you can access share your funds. Maybe that's what they're maybe that's why they're closing the accounts. They're sharing your funds. Oh, guys, secure your funds. So how you could do this is make sure you understand how you can access the funds that were in your account. If the account's closed, the bank should release your funds at least within a certain period. So find out, ask, how can you get the funds back out? Explain to them, I've got bills to pay, food to buy, gas to get, etc. Has anyone here ever had to file a complaint with this or go through this process? If so, again, drop it in the comments below so that other people can learn. And remember, if you feel wronged, don't be afraid to escalate. Banks have an obligation to handle your funds responsible. So, I just want to offer some preventive advice. As I was thinking, how could I make this video and be helpful? Because this is Brighten Up Sunshine after all. So we like to give helpful tips and things that are actually usable. So tips on how to avoid account closures. Now that we know how serious and sudden these closures can be, let's talk about protecting ourselves before it ever happens. An ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure. The number one rule is do not put all your eggs in one basket, otherwise, one bank. Diversify where you keep your money. Have accounts at multiple banks. So if one gets shut, well, you still have access to your funds elsewhere. Does anyone here have multiple bank accounts, and has that ever helped you before? What's your strategy? Some people may say under their pillow or under their mattress, keep some extra cash. Another tip, monitor your bank accounts closely. Banks usually flag transactions based on unusual activity. So if you see something odd, go ahead, pick up the phone, call your bank as soon as possible, let them know. It's also a good idea, guys, to maintain a balance above a minimum threshold. This avoids frequent overdrawn accounts or having your bank account flagged and shut down. Some banks, again, may close this if you repeatedly overdraft or are in a negative balance. And then they tack on fees. So keep that in mind as well. And another thing would be just stay informed about your bank's policies. I know this is so nerdy, but read the terms and the conditions. Yes, the fine print really matters. Some banks are stricter than others about what they consider suspicious. Find out what your bank's procedures are. Engage with your bank. Pick up the phone, find out, get into the fine print. And guys, I know I need to wrap this up today. We've covered a lot of ground. Sudden bank account closures are real, and they are happening more often. And our national debt is something that is real, and there's been bank account or whole banks collapsed, 2023, 2024, I believe we've had one here in 2024. So it's a real thing. And it's something that if it's not happened to us, that's wonderful. But we need to take preventive steps to know what we're going to do if it does, because it has happened to others. I want to thank everyone who's sharing a story in the comments or in this live chat. And remember, no matter how stressful things get, guys, what do we say? We say the sun always rises, because that's what Brighten Up Sunshine's channel is all about. I hope that this video helped you out. You learned something new. You hit the like button. You share it with someone who, well, might need this information. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more content on personal finance, protecting your money, staying informed, motivation, inspiration. We like to give things that actually, not just the horrible news, but some actual steps we can take to be proactive, and just, again, an ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure. These things are really happening, and it's not good things. But I believe the sun always rises, and I believe we can learn. Every time we face something, we can learn. But if we can learn from other people's issues, we're going to be so much better off. And people are posting this on YouTube. Um, like the New York Times made a whole article about it. I'm sure there's more news articles out there. Just Google it and you'll see yourself how many people have reported this and the different stories. So I just thought I would take my little voice on my little channel and see if it reached out to some people, and if some people could relate, and if we could just help spread the message. So until next video, I'll see you guys later, and I hope that it brought you some value.